Okay, good morning, everybody. And I'd like to welcome any of our public that's joining us this morning. And I will call our May 19th board meeting to order at 10:31, looks like. Our opening prayer, I did send it out. It should be on the agenda there. I'm not sure if we're going to share it. Yes, we are. Okay, great. So if you just join me in prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and kindle in them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit and they shall be created, and you will renew the face of the earth. Lord, by the light of the Holy Spirit, you have taught the hearts of your faithful. And the same Spirit help us to relish what is right and always rejoice in your consolation. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. And our Treaty 6 land acknowledgement. We are a party to Treaty 6, and as such, we wish to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground for many Indigenous peoples. We recognize the diversity of First Nations who have at one time lived across the territory, as well as the presence of the Métis Nation. And we do not have a public forum, so 1.5, are there any additions to the agenda? Trustee Tugwood?
I would like to, in addition to the Finance Committee regarding the trustee compensation, if you could add that.
Okay, is it an action item or a business item?
We will need a motion on it, and there is some backgrounder that will go on the screen.
Okay, so I'll put it as 4.5.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other additions? Deletions? Under committee reports, is there an audit report? No. Is there a finance report?
No, because we already have a couple of items.
Okay. Is there a labor report? Henry? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, just brief.
Okay. There's no student review. Is there a TBAC report? No? Okay. Long range planning, Trustee Sirois?
No.
And Trustee Spidich, is there a policy report? No? Is there an ACSTA report? Henry? Trustee Effon? No? Okay, and 5.10, there is no school handbook committee report because we haven't met since the last meeting. Great, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll approve the agenda.
Okay, Trustee Sirois moves.
Let the board approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Minutes of the April 21st board meeting. They have been circulated. Okay, if there's no questions or comments, I'll ask for somebody to approve the minutes as presented.
I will approve them as presented.
Okay, trustee Sirois moves. To approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 21st as circulated. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And our board priorities. Okay, thank you. 4.1. So we have our action items. Policy 7, trustee Spidich.
You're muted, Dan. Dan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I gotta get out of this screen now. Okay, so we had already had our first reading this policy. Do we go over those specific items again, or do we just talk about if there's any discussion on any of the specific changes that we had made? If anyone
Yeah,
had
you can just confirm that no further changes have been made. It's the same as what we saw last month, and we're just asking for the second reading. Yeah.
Yes, so if there are no changes or any friendly amendments, then we would, yes, move forward to this passing of the second reading. Any
Madam Chair.
discussion on that?
Go ahead, trustee Afan.
Madam Chair, since there are no further changes, if we could friendly amendment just to do second and third and finish off with this, because pretty much it was straightforward. It's just to bring things in line as to when a trustee is away and all of that. And we've done some good work to it. So if you will all indulge that, we go second and third.
Okay, trustee Spidich, are you willing to make that motion?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a friendly amendment. That would just be a motion to do
Second
third
and
reading. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, could you read the motion, please, as it's presented there?
That the board give policy 7, board operations, third and final reading as presented.
It would have to be second and third reading.
Oh, sorry, that the board give policy 7 board operations, second and third reading as presented.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, 4.2. And this is for Sean, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You can see before you in item number 4 that the early childhood calendars have been submitted by all of our elementary schools, and leave them there for your perusal.
Did anybody have any questions or comments about the calendars? They look great. Very exciting for our kindergarten people. Our kindergarten little people. So just curious if there were any adjustments from the different communities, new adjustments?
Not really. There was a little conversation yesterday with a later submission October the 1st, but other than that, it's not anything out of the ordinary. And I'd like to also acknowledge Kim for her assistance in collecting all these. It is appreciated.
Okay, excellent.
Curious, were all the holidays able to line up for all of our schools?
Oh yes. Once these are derived from the board approved calendars that are ward for each ward, so they have that to work from as a template. So it's just a matter of identifying their days, whether it be a full day program or every other day program, and hence all the colors on this to describe those various programs.
Thank you.
It's not just an Easter thing.
Okay, if there's no questions or comments, is somebody, allow somebody to go ahead with the motion? Trustee Tugwood?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the draft 2021-2022 kindergarten calendars as presented.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and that is carried unanimously. And 4.3.
Again, Madam Chair, we revisited the Wetaskiwin ward calendar, and I will freely admit, because of my counting error, we had it listed at 198 operational days as per every other calendar, but somebody with much younger eyes than I discovered that we actually had 199 days in the Wetaskiwin calendar. So the slight adjustment that we made was to eliminate June 30th as an operational day, which then had it aligned with all the other ward calendars at 198 operational days. I apologize for having to bring this back to the board for a second viewing, but it was necessitated, as I say, due to my counting error.
No worries, as long as it's fixed up and good to go. Any other comments or questions? And would somebody like to make that motion?
Sean,
Trustee
don't worry.
Afan?
We work hard in Wetaskiwin, so.
Well, we just about had to work one day harder too.
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, I'll make that motion that the board approve the revised 2021-22 Wetaskiwin ward calendar as presented. Thank you.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 4.4. Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what you have before you are two documents. We have a backgrounder, which I'll go through and as Ed's projecting it here. But in the backgrounder, I've highlighted the strategies that are different in this education plan from last year's education plan. And these new revisions or additions are a result of feedback from the community consultation, the trustees, as well as central office staff. So in domain 1, grow and affirm Catholic identity, staff are provided with faith formation opportunities. So the strategies that are new and changed in this document, and maybe I'll just also say that some of these strategies were already happening, but we hadn't put them in the last plan, but based on feedback from stakeholders, we said, oh yeah, we should comment on that. So faith development sessions is part of religious education committee and youth ministry meetings. So next year, those meetings will be combined. Director of Faith Strategies with religious education coordinators and schools to assist staff in their work as witnesses of faith. So in the last plan, that was more of it was worded explore because it was kind of new. So we're really putting in some concrete strategies around this. That is an area in the surveys that has been identified in the work that needs some attention. The third one, schools share on social media about religion classes, displays, activities, and liturgical celebrations. And schools regularly invite families to participate in faith celebrations. Those last two bullets are to address some of the parent feedback on the surveys that they didn't really know what was happening in the schools. So we need to share that with parents a little more intentionally. That's why those two bullets are in there. Moving to the next goal, which is students learn what it means to live in relationship with Jesus Christ. So there's one new strategy here, and that is we've made it optional. Schools can allocate 1.0 FTE to either a youth minister or the religious education committee member. There is flexibility there for schools to choose either as a strategy to address this board priority and local goal. And then the next one, this strategy is repeat. It was mentioned earlier, but it is a strategy that targets both goals. Once again, it's the director of faith working with religious education coordinators and schools to assist staff in their work as witnesses of faith. Strong homeschool parish partnerships. Schools write and distribute congratulations cards for reception of sacraments and acknowledge students at a school assembly and/or newsletter. Sharing of grace newsletter with parents, guardians, and staff. So for example, that's a strategy that was not listed in the previous plan, but that it's been happening all year, but we thought we'd make it more concrete by adding it. Schools will invite faithful friends to share their own faith experiences and how their talents, gifts, abilities, and skills help them in serving faithfully. Moving to domain 2, student growth and achievement. This is, in this last survey, these changes were already made, but these questions were revised. So with Assistant Superintendent Cardinal and her team, especially the recently hired psychologist this past year, we felt it was better to reword some of these questions so that they read better for students. So that's why they're in a different color there, so that it's just highlighting that those questions were changed on the survey. Strategies on the next page. Mental health resources and contacts are listed on the division and school websites. The Board of Trustees advocates to government the increasing need for mental health supports. Parent sessions held to inform about mental health supports in the school and community. This could be recorded and posted. Moving to domain 3. So continue to build and develop staff capacity. So these first two bullets were things that were already happening, but were not listed in the plan. So professional development sessions, the first bullet for administrators, the second one for teachers to address their professional standards. And the third bullet, school administrators have a strategic professional development plan that addresses education plan goals, as well as the teacher quality standards. And then the next one, foster a culture of collaboration and leadership. 2 new strategies, teachers collaborate with our education partners at Musqueam. That has been happening, it wasn't in the plan. And committee opportunities to demonstrate leadership regarding emergent issues. So those could be ad hoc committees as examples. And then domain 4, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students are successful. 3 new ones, continue to work on capacity building from the 4-year plan. Additional foundational knowledge to support admin teacher knowledge in application of closing the gap. And develop school self-assessment tool to assist in identifying areas of growth towards identified initiatives in their FNMI 4-year plan. So giving schools a concrete tool that could help them gauge their progress in this area. And then the last goal, focus on students with learning challenges. first strategy, utilize district data to identify and implement universal strategies that target specific gaps in learning. Introduce behavioral supports and strategies that all students can access, such as visual schedules, supportive technology, self-regulation tools, etc. Continue to implement year 3 of English language learner supports plan, focus on cultural awareness and supports, which were postponed due to COVID. So trustees will then, you can see the education plan. I think if you continue scrolling it should be the next document in the agenda. So I'll just speak to that briefly, and I'll just get you to stop on the title page if you could, Ed, and just scroll down to the bottom of it. So I'll remind trustees that this is a term plan that is for 2020 to 2023. So even though we're in 2021, the year doesn't change because this is a term plan that's in place and the goals are locked in for the duration of the plan. What changes are the strategies. So that's why I'll just kind of draw your attention to that date. Other than that, pictures have been updated, messages have been updated from the board chair, the superintendent. Other than that, you will not see the strategies that are a lot different, other than what was listed in the backgrounder. They're already woven into this plan, but I thought it best to highlight them in the backgrounder. So as you're aware, the province now has a 2-part process, an AERR and an education plan. So it's at the May meeting that the Board of Trustees approves and makes the motion to approve the education plan. So I believe the motion is in your package, but I'll entertain any questions at this time on any of those documents, either the backgrounder or the education plan.
So I'll just open it up for trustees for comments or questions. Sorry, I can't see everybody. I'll try to go there. Trustee Sirwa, go ahead.
Charlie, it said here schools are allocated 1 FTE to support a youth minister or religious education. Is that like above and beyond what is present?
So in the past couple of years, so first off, it's 0.1, so it's 0.1 of an FTE. It's not a full-time person.
Okay.
And in past years, the junior senior high schools had a 0.1 for a youth minister. What we've done is we've allocated that 0.1 across all schools, including the elementary. They can choose to either have a youth minister or allocate that 0.1 to their religious education coordinator.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking 1 as in 1 full time.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Trustee Tugwood? Sorry.
I was just going to say that during the consultation day, I noted a lot of the community that was there really wanted that used in all the schools. And I think that's kind of looking to what was suggested during that day.
Trustee Eflin?
No, I was going to comment, Charlie, thank you for all the work. I know we've always struggled around youth ministry and religious coordinators, and these will probably align and give some flexibility as to whatever fits a school, right? So they have somebody available to support our spiritual needs for the kids. So thank you. Other than that, yeah, looks colorful, good. Madam Chair, I can make that motion if there are no more.
Yeah, so I do have a few questions. So just going back to that youth ministry and rec position. So does the youth minister position, do they miss out, or does that school miss out on the support of the rec committee? You know, because a lot happens with that committee, right? It's a division committee.
So the schools always have and had a religious education coordinator.
Yeah.
So even if they had a youth minister, they still had a rec member. It's just there was no FTE allocated to that rec member.
Mm-hmm.
So this plan allows them the flexibility to allocate some FTE to that person should they choose.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious if if they didn't, they would still have a rec person, but it might be a volunteer
Correct.
position. Okay, okay. And then just going through the ed plan, I just had some questions here. So on page 15, the teacher mentorship, it mentions that it's 3 years. And I thought that we changed that to 2 years because of budgeting.
Lori, do you have any comments on that?
Yes, that is correct. It is 2 years.
Okay, so we'll have to make an adjustment on that. Caitlin, if you can make a note. Thank you.
And then on page 21, like the notes that I have here, I might not remember exactly what I was commenting on, but anyhow, page 21, really appreciate the parents' sessions. I think that's on mental health. So really appreciate that strategy. And on page 22, the strategies with the parish. I was just wondering, like, so we have that, strategies about homeschool parish and all that, but do we actually, how do we communicate that to our parish is what I'm wondering. Because they might not even know, like the KCs, the CWL, they're mentioned in the document, but maybe they don't even know that they're in our document, I guess. So I don't know if this is the place to ask these questions, but I just jotted them down.
Yeah, it's perfectly, those are good questions, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do draw some of those highlights in our messaging when we do, for example, like superintendent's message around Catholic Education Sunday. But yeah, we in the annual education results report, you will see listed in there all the different things that we do with each of these groups. So those groups are aware of it because it's their involvement in our schools. That's highlighted in the AERR. So we don't communicate back to the CWL that you were in our school because they already know that. But that is one of the measures that we report in the AERR. So all of these strategies are measured in the annual education results report.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it might be something good to always like touch on when we have that parish meeting, the Archbishop meeting with our parish priests, just reminding them how, our parishes are part of our, they're very much involved in our strategies to always make that connection. So anyhow, I just wanted to mention that. And then is there a reference anywhere to the assurance model in communicating in the document?
At the start of the document, there is.
There is? Okay. I just, I kind of came to the end and then I thought, did I read that? I wasn't sure, but anyhow, I just wanted to ask about that. And then on page 24 and 28, if we could spell out FNMI rather than just using the acronym.
Okay, we can make a note of that. That's an easy fix.
Yeah, that's page 24 and 28. And on page 25, I really appreciate the ASBA position statements. That was just, I really appreciate that. So anyhow, that was all that I had. So if there's no other questions or comments.
Do have just one quick comment.
Go ahead, Trustee
Probably
Tugwood.
couldn't see me.
Yeah.
I just noticed on page 4 on the board chair, down in the last paragraph, it says his education plan. I think it means this education plan.
Oh, thanks for catching that.
That was just a small thing, but first I thought, why is his not capitalized? No, it's not his education plan. This.
Right.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you
we
for
could say it's
catching
his.
Yes, but we should capitalize the H then.
that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, excellent work. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate how much work goes into this by the staff. Caitlin, including Caitlin there. So
Yeah, and I would like to also thank, well, Caitlin, as well as Lori and her team, for their work on this as well.
yeah. Okay, so there's just a few minor changes there. So I guess the trustee Afon, you were looking to make this motion. So it's whether we just want to say as amended, just that we make those.
Yeah, as amended will be. And thank you for catching that mentorship program. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so trustee Afon, you've made that motion.
Yeah, that the board approve the 2020 to 2023 education plan as amended.
Okay, any comments or further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and just so I can see Dan and trustees Fidich and, okay, great. Okay, and that is carried unanimously. Okay, 4.5, this is trustee Tugwood, so I'll pass this over to you.
Yes, this is the, as far as policy 7, appendix B, the trustee honoraria and expense schedule. And I believe it was sent to Kim so that we could put some of it in the screen share. So the committee reviewed the information. There were 5 sister boards and also summary information from 38 boards, which is attached. We can show it in a moment. But we, as a board, as a finance committee, we felt that with our current social and economic situation the way it is, that it is not time to warrant a change in this. So the committee's recommendation is to make no changes for September 2021. Do you want to look at the, there it is. This is the sister boards, and then at the end, it's the average of the responding boards, which are 38 boards. So our honorarium, as you can see, is a little bit lower, but we just really feel that in the climate today, it's just not a good time to warrant a change. So if you want to have a look over this, give you a few minutes. The boards that we're really closest to in terms of numbers, I think, would be the Evergreen Catholic School Board, Catholic Separate School Division, and the Wild Rose School Division.
So, Madam Chair, I have a quick comment for.
Sure, go ahead, trustee Afon.
Yeah. And I thought we were going to move the mileage to actuals starting this month.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Say that again.
We're going to move the mileage to actuals.
Move the mileage to actuals?
Yes.
Are you talking about the time mileage, or are you talking about the actual mileage?
The actual mileage.
The 53 cents a kilometer. And that's already actual.
No.
You said mileage.
Okay. The automatic mileage that was dispensed throughout the year, now that we're meeting virtually.
Oh, you're talking about the time.
Yes.
So that's time versus, yeah. We were gonna, I think that's coming up later in the agenda. Am I not correct, Michelle, that you had put that on later in the agenda?
Yes, I did. It is at the bottom or at the end of our agenda, but
Yeah.
I don't think we can approve this
No.
until we look at that item at the bottom, at the end of the agenda.
Yeah.
Because I think it kind of came to light at the finance committee that this doesn't work anymore, this taxable travel time allowance, because I think when it was prepared, we were trying to get a good feel for the budget line and not have, and I think we figured that, okay, that we know that these trustees from these communities, they travel once a month for sure, and some committee meetings. So an amount was brought up that why don't we just add it on to the honoraria for those communities so that they don't have to make a regular claim or a monthly claim, and we know the budget line a lot better, right? For those traveling. So because of Zooming now, and we won't be traveling as much, it doesn't make sense that we have this anymore. And I think we have to go back to actual is kind of what I think we have to have that discussion.
Right.
I was thinking maybe that should be going to policy first so they can actually look at it and determine how it should be said. So you're talking about actual time and so much an hour or something. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes. However, this was,
okay.
yeah, however this was figured out, I think we have to go back and research it.
I wasn't here then.
Yeah. And try to determine what do those figures mean.
Yeah.
And then give it back to, make it an amount that trustees would claim each time that they do travel for a board meeting, right? So that it's more accurate. So
That
I'm
makes
just wondering.
more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So it still is, I believe it's still a finance committee that would have to look at this. And anyhow, I'm just wondering what other trustees think at this time.
I thought
Should
this
it go
was
back
set-
to the
set-
committee?
This was set out usually by policy committee. That's why I thought it would go to policy first.
Mhm.
But if you want to do finance committee first, I guess if we can find the formula that was used, this was before our time, and then look at what we can change that to, because it does need a change for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
it's because it does affect the budget as well. That's why we thought that the finance committee should address it as well.
So if finance, we could do that, then we will have to hold all of these because it's going to affect all the budgeting, right? So then that we can come back with this actual, and then everything that changes on these lines, then we are really reflecting a rightful. So if we could, we have a finance meeting coming,
Yes,
right?
May 9th,
Madam Chair,
May 9th.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'd maybe ask Ed for his opinion on this, but my understanding is that finance sets the rates, but policy sets the structure.
Yes.
And I think what you're talking about is changing the structure. So
Yeah,
I would
structure,
see
right.
that as policy, but I don't know if Ed has a thought on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed, if you have a recommendation,
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
guess,
policy and finance could do this together.
well, and what it might be is a little bit simultaneously in terms of research in the background, but I think ultimately it's the board's policy on taxable travel time. How do you want it to be structured? This rate is done as an annual rate, split up over the number of months paid to trustees. If it's a rate that you want that's on a per meeting basis, then we have a base calculation that's historical that I'll research out to bring back to the committee. But if the policy is going to reflect it on an as claimed basis, so a trustee has to claim it if they are traveling to the board meeting that month, then we can factor that in terms of adjusting the rate. But I think it's best if the finance committee has an idea of what the policy will say, so that we can reflect the number that in a proposal to the board.
So you're looking at the policy committee, looking at it first and setting out the process, and then the finance committee saying an amount.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah,
If
I
we could
agree.
do that simultaneously. Okay.
It's the same people are on both, pretty much.
Okay, so this is going to go to policy first.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense, because
Yes.
that will dictate the finance rates after that. Yeah.
Okay, and then finance will confirm it. Okay, the other thing we have to take care of here is that this travel time allowance should not be happening like right now. So again, I just need to bring it to your attention that, we haven't been traveling. All our meetings have been on Zoom, but we can finish that discussion at the end because that's where I put it.
Yeah, we can discuss
So-
that at the end.
Yeah, so we'll go back to this at 7.11. Okay,
So can we pass, can we make a motion about this and then any changes? Because I know Henry had said before that we could pass this and then make a change in the June meeting as far as communication allowance. So that would be the same idea, right? So
I think I think it's not, it doesn't make sense to pass it without it being adjusted. We recognize that the committee has looked at it and they're recommending like no increases, which is good. You know, that research happened. So I definitely acknowledge that, but to go ahead with a motion where we know that most likely there's going to be a change to the appendix, it really wouldn't make sense to go forward.
Okay, usually
So-
appendix can be changed without a motion, so that would have been easy to change the appendix, but we can wait till next month to carry this motion forward.
Yeah, that was the thought, that if we looked at it and then go ahead and then bring the appendix to reflect
Yeah.
it, and then the minor changes can be made.
Yeah.
going
Okay, and the
forward.
only piece that's going to be looked at that we expect change is the travel per diem.
And maybe a communication.
Those two, so they will come in appendix. So
Yeah.
what do we want to move ahead or wait and come back to it after the?
No, we're gonna finish the discussion on the travel at 7.11.
But that won't change about the communication, or is that, I don't think that's even on. We were
No.
gonna bring that communication to the next one. So it would still involve a change. So in my mind, we could pass this and then the appendix, we could look at that in June after we talk about this, the travel time allotment. But if you want to wait till June to pass the motion, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Okay, thank you to finance for that work so far. Okay,
Madam-
so
Madam Chair, as a point of order, are we tabling this item 4.5 until the next meeting then?
till the
or
next, yeah, till
calling a
next,
vote? Okay.
next June meeting, yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, committee reports. So 5.3, Trustee Afon.
So TIBA met on Thursday, just to give an update, as well as to share where things are. Most of the highlights, as we all do know, they're still negotiating where to put few items between ATA and TIBA and confirm some of those. We don't have support staffs that are unionized. That was something that was coming up as well, very strong across those discussions. Pretty much, there's just one more division left to settle. The rest of them have all settled. And something that was coming out to light, especially again, was during some of these divisions and their unions, it was felt like trustees they were handcuffed not to be saying anything to the media, whereas ATA have the upper hand and sharing a lot of some information in the media, right? In some of those discussions. However, we do know every district have different ATA unions, and they choose to do what they can do. But again, something for trustees to be mindful of that when we want to share things in media. I know we do different things with our ATA and have some agreements as to how do we communicate to the public as a one voice. But there are some areas they don't have those. So that is causing a little bit of some situations. Other than that, some of these are all public knowledge. So Ed and Sean, anything to add on there? It's just an update.
Not for me, Trustee Afon.
Thank you. All
Nothing
right.
here.
Nothing here. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Efan. Okay, we are going to go to ASBA report 5.8. So I just want to thank Trustee Tugwood for her work on the Edwin Parr committee with Zone 2-3. It's always a great experience. So I guess we need to, or we do have plans for Edwin Parr evening already. So I believe that's taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah. The next zone meeting is this Friday. The one thing that we didn't kind of take care of, the lobbying toolkit. If you recall, that email came out quite a while ago. And we thought that we could kind of have a session on it. And I haven't planned anything. And I'm just wondering if it's something more to look at in the fall when, maybe when the new board is getting organized and they're looking to plan out, certain things that they're lobbying for. So anyhow, I'm just wondering your feedback on that, because it was something I said that we would look at, but we didn't. So just wondering if anybody has some comments on that. It's a good resource to kind of plan your communication with government, your MLAs, your ministers.
So, Madam Chair, thank you for bringing that up. I believe, like you said, will be a new board in the fall. That will be something to keep on the back burner or in the agenda come the fall. And as well, this will fall in line with our own board evaluation that we are doing to line things up, that some of these strategies and discussions and the plan is there going forward to include all of that, because all that falls under the advocacy work for a trustee. So that's the way I would put it, so then that everything in the fall becomes proper fitting and have a plan.
I kind of feel like all that work kind of happened. The timing wasn't quite what we needed, right? We're kind of at the end of our term and yeah, so that's how I looked at it. So if trustees want to revisit that toolkit when we get a little bit more organized in our with the new board, and there can be a session, on how to plan out your advocacy for the new term. Okay, thank you. And then
Madam Chair,
yes, go ahead, Trustee Efan.
Trustee Tugwood has her hands up. You have your hand up? Oh, okay.
All right. I was just going to say pretty well what Henry said, to wait until the fall, and also when there isn't such a focus on the pandemic, when we can be looking at things we are lobbying for. And for the new trustees, I think that would be the best time to do it. It's an excellent kit. I've gone over it all. There's lots of great ideas, but not great ideas during a lockdown.
Yeah.
So much better in the fall. And also, as far as the Edwin Parr, it was my pleasure to be on that committee. It was a wonderful experience, and I'm looking forward to the evening. I believe it's June 2nd, so it will be a really good evening. So
and it's all virtual, correct?
Yes, it's all virtual, but it will be really nice virtual.
Yeah. Yes. No, how they did it last year, it worked out good, but we probably don't have the opportunity to meet at all like we did last year, correct, Charlie?
Unless the restrictions were to be eased.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just let that sit. So
yeah, and that's pretty quick, June 2nd. I can't see it changing a lot by then, but who knows?
And then the final coffee conversation finished up. And there will be a report, a final report. And again, it'll be a resource for kind of, communicating trusteeship in your community. So hopefully we're going to get that before the end of May. That was kind of the plan with the advocacy group. And then on item number 4, the rural caucus meeting, I was going to ask Trustee Tugwood if she could report on that briefly.
Yes, the meeting was on April 27th, and it was with the Minister of Education, and they had quite a few questions we had listed to ask her. And it was the focus was on mental health, which is a really important focus right now. But when I look at some of the questions, like how can we ensure that all students in rural Alberta have equity and access to mental health supports, the minister wants us to be creative and work together. She also mentioned that we should use more technology. So FaceTiming specialists rather than driving. And she recognized that there was really too much windshield time, especially for rural areas. So what were some of the others? Difficulty in getting professionals to the rural areas. Again, she's just said that she felt that there were some divisions that said this has been better since the pandemic. I don't think that's one of our divisions that said that. And what support, we asked, what support can the government put in place to ensure mental health accessibilities and risk mitigation supports are provided to our families? She said again that she would like authentic wraparound services, as she has always said as a trustee, but that right now we just need to work together and there's no positive plan. She did mention that as far as the windshield time, she said she wants us to use more technology, and she hinted that they are going to be introducing something new, but that it's not quite ready to announce it. So I don't know what that was. And that's pretty well, yeah, there wasn't any direct positive things that I could report back. So I'm interested to see what this new item is that she was talking about. Charlie, do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, it was a little bit of a hidden message, I guess. There's 2 things that come to mind. It might have been the transportation report, which we've since received. But I also know that she was speaking a little bit too about rural internet. So it could be related to that as well.
Thank you. That's probably what it was, the rural internet. And thank you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, I've asked for twice from our from the education rep that comes to the zone meetings is the analytics on the use of online mental health supports. If that really is, what that can tell us, by the use of that, if it really is being accessed. Now, there's also a program that I've shared, and I shared that with you too, Trustee Efron. It's the Rural Health, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's about bringing partners together in rural communities and advocating for the specialists that you need in your community. So Drayton Valley already uses this, and that's how they've kind of used that advocacy group to bring doctors, I believe, into their community. And this is where like school boards, municipalities, they could really work together to come up with creative ideas of how to bring those specialists into your community and to live there and settle in and bring their expertise, right? It's a very good, resource that can be used. So, I would just keep that in mind for our rural communities that when there is opportunity, and I'll share that website with everybody again, so that everybody is familiar with it. And then if you do have conversations in your community and you want to share that information, or you want to know more about it, or your counselor isn't familiar with it, or your MLA isn't familiar with it, then you have the resource and you can talk about it. And if it means, it's an opportunity for us to promote and work with other partners in our community to bring those specialists into our community. So anyhow, I'll be sure to share that website. And we are going to look at the other item I have highlighted on the ASB report. There is the SGM, and it's farther down in our meeting. So, and I think that was it. And item number 6, we do not have any in-camera items, so we could move on to 7.1, my board chair report. So I just highlighted that the transportation report, and just I was just curious from admin if there was anything that came out of that was interesting, or if there's any comments from admin on it.
I guess the part that I found kind of interesting is, it talks lots about sharing of transportation between divisions, which we've been doing for years.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really earth shattering. The other parts, about MELT, we don't deal with that.
No, we don't. No.
Specifically. So not a lot of it was really relevant or insightful for us. Ed, I don't know if you thought anything different.
I guess the two things is that that audit review committee in terms of benchmarking and best practices will be interesting. Certainly, they are kind of reinforcing in terms of dealing with hazards that's done at a jurisdictional level. But perhaps there's some benchmarking there. But other than kind of what I would call most routine matters of transportation, I don't think there was anything particular for STAR to deal with at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Go ahead, Trustee Tugwood.
As far as hazards, I know in Lacombe we have an issue. We have a lot of parents who are concerned because they're across the track and across the 4-lane highway, and they still they're too close to get legally bused. What did it address any of that?
Other than saying that the audit review committee would be reviewing that in terms of setting some benchmarks, but again, that would be part of a locally made decision by the board in terms of the service, and recognizing also that there's a shared responsibility in terms of hazard between the parents as well as the school board. So that might have been one of the more interesting aspects, is the phrase that kind of came back on more than one occasion of responsibilities of the parents and what's required under the Act as opposed to how boards have provided services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a hard one because I think every community has crossings that are worrisome, right? Yeah. Yeah, so. Okay, the other item there, I just highlighted our letter to the minister. So just a thank you to trustees for responding on that. And we haven't received a response. So again, we were just looking for, again, we're committed to following the recommendations of the chief medical officer in this whole pandemic thing, for sure. But we were looking for that, when can we make decisions in our division under, the guidelines of the chief medical officer. So anyhow, that is there's no response yet. We're not sure how next week is going to roll out, but hopefully everything is go forward. And I did update everybody on the families that are affected by the wildfires there. So yeah, that was very, very difficult for some of those families out there. So just keeping them in our prayers. Okay, and we can move on to the superintendent report if there's no other questions or comments on my report. Okay, 7.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the area of faith leadership, I'd like to highlight a couple of items. First item I'd like to highlight is the fourth bullet. So I had a meeting with Father Suse Jesu, who is the priest at Sacred Heart Church of the First Peoples in Edmonton. So for those of you who might not be aware, that is an national Indigenous parish for the First Peoples. And it is an inner city church. And last August, at the end of August, it had a fire and it destroyed the church on the inside. So because it does serve the Indigenous communities that we serve, as well as right across Canada, the Archbishop encouraged Father to reach out to school divisions. So we had a conversation about that, and we talked about ways that maybe Star Catholic could help their parish. So subsequent to that conversation, I met with the school's administration and talked about that project. There were 8 schools that identified they would like to participate in fundraising, either one or an ongoing fundraiser to support that parish. So we met again yesterday, and many of our schools that are involved are looking to maybe do something, a little bit of a fundraiser on National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. So the idea is to come up with some financial contributions that could be provided to that parish. So we're going to run that till the end of June, and then we'll make a contribution to that parish. I think I would be looking for the board chair's involvement in a bit of a presentation to that parish once that fundraising is done. Next, I'll highlight is Catholic Education Week. Obviously, this was a bit of a challenge this year, as it was last year, but again this year, because of just back in the area of faith, please, Ed. The challenge this year, as you know, is we went online right before Catholic Education Week. So a lot of the stuff that we normally had planned and schools had planned couldn't really come to fruition, but I think we did a good job highlighting what we could. In speaking to Caitlin, we had a little bit of a slow start, but once the week kind of got going, there was more uptake, and you probably noticed that on the social media feeds, as the week went on. So all in all, I think it was as good as could be in the current light and context. In the second area, building effective relationships, the first bullet, I guess I will just let the board know that we continue to work with Christ the King staff. We had an entire school half-day session with Kevin Cameron, where we continued to work with the staff and how they can support themselves and students, again, in the area of trauma support. And the intention is to continue that work next year. So we've worked with the school. They've identified a couple of possible areas where they might want some support next year. So we're working with Kevin Cameron to see if we can continue to meet those needs with him moving into next year, but that work is ongoing. In number 4, visionary leadership, the second bullet is, I'll just highlight that we met as a superintendent's council. Again, that's a group of senior admin and school division principals. There are 4 of them that sit on that council and provide feedback on mobilizing and how to strategize the education plan and the framework document that the senior admin uses to guide its work. I would like to talk to the board about kind of two recommendations that pertain to you. One is the annual meeting that you have with the Archbishop and priests. So principals asked if principals could be part of that meeting. And their thinking is, it could kind of just solidify the messaging and the solidarity around the partnership between parish and schools. And it was a suggestion that they had that, they would like to be a participant in that meeting. And then the second thing that they mentioned is for the COSC meeting. They do keep having kind of a recurring theme that they deal with their school councils that they think could be a good area of focus is supporting non-Catholic families. How can school councils support non-Catholic families? So those are two things that came out of that pertain specifically to trustees that I'll put out there as something for you to think about and consider as you move into that work next year and set your calendars. Moving to number 7, I'll let the board know that school budget meetings have all occurred, and senior admin sat with administrators to review budgets. Things look positive as much as can be expected on that front. I think the biggest issue or sticker shock was the increased benefit cost for both teachers and support staff, which was an actual increase to budgets. But overall, the province, not holding us to the COVID enrollment was a big support in that. So that was helpful. I want to speak a little bit about COVID. It's just at the top of the next page. I thought I'd put some numbers in there to draw the attention to trustees, just how much schools are impacted by COVID. And this is between the last board meeting and this board meeting. So 29 cohorts were isolated. Actually, it's 30 because yesterday, as you know, I sent you an email that we had to isolate a preschool at St. Augustine. So it's really 30 cohorts. And if you include the preschool at St. Augustine, we're almost at 700 students having to go into isolation, an additional 107 bus students and 77 staff members. What's interesting for some of those staff members, as an example, they've been on their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round of isolation. So if you think about a staff member who's been, for 3 or 4 14-day cycles of having to isolate, that means having to stay in their home. That's a huge impact to that staff member. So I'm just highlighting these kind of real impacts to the Board of Trustees on the impact of COVID and what it means when we have a positive case in a school. And this is just 1 month between the last board meeting and this. So you can just kind of put it all together in a big picture of the impact of COVID. The last thing that I'll highlight is at the end of number 7, and that is the Long Service Awards planning and evening that is happening. So I just want to remind trustees that the trustees and board Long Service Awards night, this is your night. Typically, we would involve you a lot more in the handing out and presenting of awards. It's a little hard to do this year because it is a virtual event, but I'll remind you that it's on June 11th. It's scheduled to start at 6:30. Once the recipient and the attendee list is finalized, we will send trustees a link. That will be, I believe, a Zoom meeting. So I just wanted to kind of just make sure that you're reminded it is on your calendar of events. But 6:30 on the 11th, I know that Caitlin, Sean, and Kim have been working hard on that, and they're doing a bit of a dry run on it this Friday. But although it is virtual, like mentioned at the Edwin Parr, I believe it will be a good event. And that group that's organizing it is really trying to make it the best that it can be in the current context. And I have full confidence that it will be, as good as we can possibly have it for that virtual event. So those are the items that I would like to highlight in my report. Of course, and as always, I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, are there any questions or comments for Charlie?
Question, Charlie.
Go ahead, Trustee Eflin.
Yeah. On one of your highlights there, FCSS have shared their struggles with financial and mental health issues. Can you just elaborate on that a bit? Is that for FCSS or those are families in need?
Lori, would you like to comment on that, please?
I would have to check with our director as well as our psychologist, because they would have the most connection there.
So one of the reasons why is if we know which is which, then as usual, right, that's one of our focus of the advocacy, especially around the mental health, and then the financial issue that is coming with. That's why that position statement we're trying to make was to include some of all of these partners about that. So if we can know that, that would be great. Then Charlie, last about the long service award, I'll speak with you later about grammar rules, if you don't mind, because I don't know your guest list and the list you have right now, but I will speak.
So I'll just remind you that the awards night is for employees. So we don't recognize any of our ACST awards at that, or are you looking to do that, Trustee Eflin?
No, I wasn't looking to do that, but okay. I just have something different in mind. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, anyone else with questions or comments? I do have sorry, I can't see everybody, but if you had, or you can just. Okay, so I appreciate that supporting the Sacred Heart Parish. We used to go there quite often in our hockey years because they had a late Sunday night mass and we could make that one. So anyhow, I really appreciate that. So, and I just had a couple comments here. So I appreciate the comment on the support of mental health from a Catholic perspective. I really appreciate that. I actually just started like watching an online session on that. Is there anything the board can do for Christ the King? I guess I'd like to offer that, and just wondering if, you know, if they need the board support in some way.
So nothing's coming to mind, but I will keep that in mind. But I will say that the staff has commented that they felt very supported throughout this process. So we keep extending that offer. You know, if there's anything that we can do to support you, let us know. So they continue to kind of let us know if there's anything that they need. But I think that the comments have been positive, that they feel supported. But I will keep that in mind. And if there's anything, I will let you know for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, that it's a different stage now of recovering, and there's always it's still a long road ahead. So anyhow, I'm sure that the board would be open to, you know, supporting them and their needs, you know, as they continue to move forward. So if you could just extend that on behalf of the board, and if they need something, you know, we're here to listen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And just wondering about the VITRA protocol. So, and this is for policy, that, you know, if policy is meeting, and obviously they will be again, but maybe there should be a notation in our policy, and perhaps it's under board operations, but, you know, in our policy, it says that the board chair is the spokesperson for the division, but really in VITRA, the superintendent is. So I think we need to have that in there. Maybe there's some kind of reference to VITRA, and then just referencing that the superintendent is a spokesperson for that type of event. And then it's just clear, you know, for the next board coming forward. And the other thing, because we do go through a Vitra event, it happens, but perhaps the new board, again, I'm thinking for the new board, may not know what that protocol is or what it's about. And maybe it's one time in the term of a trustee that it's on the work plan for a review. Like, what is Vitra? What happens? Who's responsible for what? And just, it gives that confidence to the board that it's all in place. It's a community partnership between lots of partners to make sure that these events are handled the way that they should be. So anyhow, just wondering what trustees think of that, or would that be worthwhile?
So
Go ahead, Trustee Efron.
yeah, like you said, policy, we can look at that, but board chair have always been the spokesperson for the division, so that could be delegated as to in an event of a Victra situation.
Yeah.
So that is an easy I don't think that should be, but again, that's just my opinion, should be. But then again, with the Victra, we have it in certain communities and we don't have it in certain communities. So again, we'll be familiar with trustees that have Victra in their communities, because a community initiative that includes into it, so then that we can have that discussion, and for trustees in those communities should be pretty much familiar with it and understand the process. But as to the spokesperson, the board chair have always been, which is always you could be delegating that because of
and perhaps that's how it needs to be worded, is that that's delegated to the superintendent at the time of a Vitra.
Yeah.
So
Madam
again,
Chair, if I could
go ahead.
Just to speak about the emergency response. I'll just kind of go back to this. I'll use this as an event to kind of highlight. So in that situation, in our emergency operations center here in this current model, Sean is, he is the chief in kind of running the event. I am the communication person between the board chair and kind of what's happening on the ground. The board chair, we talked about it, who should communicate to the media, right? I think the way it's worded, you have to, as the board chair, decide whether you want to be the spokesperson for the division or you want me to, right? So in that situation there, I think when we had talked, you said that you were comfortable with me doing that because I had more, but that could be in any emergency response, not just a Vitra. It could be a flood, a fire, etc. So it's not necessarily that it's worded incorrectly in policy. We could kind of tweak it a little bit, but it's not just a Vitra. It's in any emergency system. The board chair has to decide, do they want to be the one in front of the camera or do they want the superintendent to handle it?
Yeah, because it becomes operational and you are not on the ground, and we want accurate information from the ground. So whatever is happening on the ground, so that's where that delegation comes in. And it's covered.
It's very important that it's accurate information that's coming out.
Exactly.
So I would just say,
I will highlight though, like you do see on TV, there are some divisions where it's the board chair that's always on TV, right?
Yeah.
So that's up to you guys how you want to run that. It's really your call as a board, specifically the board chair. You can delegate that in that situation. You say, no, I want to be the face in this situation, but each one can be its own unique event.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, anyhow, something for policy to think about. And if it needs to, the policy can come back with a recommendation. I think, is there an issue with Code 48? I just noticed that was in your report too, like something has changed with coding.
Yeah, that's in the new funding manual. It's just a code there for kindergarten students.
Yeah.
And some funding around them. Yeah, we have to now code them, but we were supporting them with funding in the past anyways. So it's not really any change in practice here at Star Catholic.
Okay.
I don't know if Ed or Lori want to comment on that any further.
Okay, I was just curious about that. I think that was everything. Thank you very much, Charlie.
You're welcome.
And it's been a absolutely crazy time, the COVID numbers, because I did have a note too. Was that like what length of time was that? And that was only for the last month. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very difficult to keep up with that for everybody. So thank you to all the staff just trying to manage all that. Absolutely hard. Trustee Tugwood?
Yes, I just had one question about that code 48 too. I wondered if that came around because of some PUF changes for the ECS students. Did that have anything to do with that?
Ed, do you want to give kind of an overview of that, please?
I'm not sure if it was due to the PUF or more of a recognition that there was funding that had been deleted a number of years ago with regard to moderate disabilities in the ECS program area, and transitioning, especially with regards to language delay between PUF and what might be provided in grade 1. But this coding number, or this coding that's used for demographic information and then translates to funding to the jurisdiction, is sort of that intermediate area. But we've been providing supports to those students, recognizing that there's a spectrum with regards to language delay and language support. So even though the funding structure has changed somewhat, we are continuing to provide supports. With regards to PUF, we had always recognized with the new funding framework that on the ECS PUF, the way it was first introduced, that wasn't going to be sufficient for our ECS programming. So we had already supplemented ECS PUF program by recognizing those that were severe as a tier 3 student, and that allocated more money than was actually being granted by the province in terms of funding. Other students flowed through from funding from the province as well. So this it's new and it's meant to address those needs, but the division's already been supplying supports with regards to that already.
Okay, thank you. I thought maybe it was because of that bit of a change, and I've been away from it for 4 years, but I was involved with a lot of mild to moderate students, so I wondered just what the changes were within that.
Yeah, the funding for mild moderate has disappeared a number of years ago in terms of ECS, and it's an interesting reintroduction of recognizing that group, but it's very specific that it's on the language portion.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can move on to 7.3.
Okay, I won't make sure I'm unmuted. Every now and then I forget whether I am or I'm not. I'm sorry. Couple of things. Most of my time, of course, over the past month has been dealing with the budget and budget development. A couple of other things that are still in the works and concurrently working is that looking at the city of Leduc and the city of Beaumont with regards to joint use and planning that's required under the MGA. I have not heard from our other communities. I did reach out last year. I'll do another one, but especially the Lacombe, Wetaskiwin, and Ponoka. Parkland Community Development is in the process of, I think, developing a template agreement, looking at promoting pulling a number of resources, and then and is being supported by a number of communities and municipalities in that development of that template. So I suspect that in the Highway 2 corridor, they are somewhat waiting for that template to come out before they start talking and reaching out to us with regards to the joint use and planning agreements. Town of Drayton Valley is, I think, undergoing their own issues. and are not necessarily at a stage where they can start looking at those that agreement in particular. So I suspect this fall, I'll be reaching out to them to make sure that they're on track with their compliance and what assistance that we can provide in developing those agreements moving forward. Ongoing is, of course, the general election. We've started the rollout of the communication plan. And also, and we'll talk a little bit later, is a follow-up with regards to our capital plan and the commitment letter from the city of Beaumont, doing some follow-up there. Like I said, majority of my time has been spent working through the budget. There's been some other challenges, including supporting CTK in that regard. I'll speak to that, I believe, on the next item of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Ed, you alluded to the disinfecting protocols.
Yes.
Facility, what's going on there?
Well, what we've had is our disinfecting protocol for COVID is handled generally by our custodial staff. In classroom, we provided a product for teacher use that was safe within the classroom, but was not recognized by Alberta Health Services in being antiviral. But our intention was never that it was to be antiviral. If we needed to do an antiviral cleaning because a student had demonstrated symptoms or there was some concern that our hand washing protocols weren't being followed, then custodial staff were to be asked to come into the classroom to provide that antiviral cleaning. We are following up now to provide a product that is antiviral in terms of for classroom use that can be used by staff if they so choose in the classroom. And so it's just reviewing to make sure that we've got the right product there that's safe in that environment on a regular basis. So that took a bit of research and a great deal of time, I think, by Chris Mannion, our Director of Facilities, and our safety officer in terms of making sure that we've got the right mix there and what it would entail to have that antiviral product in the classroom. The key, Sorry, the key point is that we were doing an antiviral cleaning every day and with the regular custodial duties, as well as during the daytime in terms of our high touch areas, so that that process was still in place. What we were looking at is responding to Alberta Health Services.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're right at, oh, sorry, go ahead, Trustee Tugwood.
I was just had a question about the Father Lacombe. You had a meeting about Father Lacombe. I've had a couple of people in the community say to me that they heard lumber costs have skyrocketed and how this is going to affect our budget at Father Lacombe School. So I said I would find out because I have no idea. But I thought we were locked in, but hopefully we were.
Well, what's nice is there's a couple of things with regards to the Father Lacombe replacement school. One is, yes, it is a fixed price contract. So recognizing that, yes, the cost of lumber might be rising, but the accelerated schedule that we've now moved the school onto has also saved some money. And all of those things are gains and losses for the contractor. The second sort of what I call line of defense in terms of cost control is that this project is managed by Alberta Infrastructure. It is not a division managed project where we have to be concerned about whether we are within the resources allotted. That concern and risk is managed by the province in this regard.
Okay, so that's good. So I know what to say when people ask me. I thought it was already fixed and we didn't have to worry about it, but I thought I better check and make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, so we're on 7.4, but it's lunchtime. So just wondering, we can break for lunch. And what does everybody want to do? Come back in a half an hour or 45 minutes? Half hour, just give me the thumbs up. And 45 minutes looks like is going to win. Okay, so we'll be back at 1:45.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks,
have a good
everybody.
lunch, everyone.